It shouldn't be news to you now that you'll be writing 180 questions in 2 hours, which is equivalent to 40 seconds per question. In this video, I'll teach you how to make the best use of these 2 hours and also share my personal experiences and my mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes in your exam. By now, you should have known whether to use the keyboard or the mouse. It's also important that you know that the keyboard is faster than the mouse. But if you're not comfortable with using the keyboard or you have not used it before to practice for the exam, I'll just advise that you stick to the mouse, which is easier for you to use, because learning how to use the keyboard in the exam hall would be almost a waste of time. So I'll advise that you just stick to your mouse. And why I advise that you stick to your mouse instead of the keyboard if you have not been practicing using the keyboard is that so that you don't mistakenly press the key S and at the same time press enter. That means automatic submit. There is nothing that the invigilators can do about it. But if you wish to use the keyboard to answer your questions in the exam, which is probably faster than using the mouse, I would advise that you master how to use these keys. And don't worry about forgetting them because they will be included in a booklet that will be given to you in the exam hall. Once you're seated in the exam hall, it is important to know that it's perfectly normal for your heart to be pounding. Can you hear that sound? Yeah, that's the feeling. No matter how prepared you are. In fact, it still happens to me now that I am in the university. While writing school exams, I still have that feelings of my heart racing before we start the exam. And I found that it's just a way that your system uses to prepare you for the battle ahead or the exam you're about to write. So don't fret or worry about it. And if you're a biology student, you know that this is the work of the adrenaline. It is trying to prepare you for fight or flight. So just chill. It's perfectly normal. During these periods, it's important to take a deep breath and allow more oxygen into your lungs. If you still feel uncomfortable during this time, you can just pull off your shoes, and if you're a guy, you can just unbuckle a button or two. But this advice is not for ladies. That's a joke though, but just try your best to wear comfortable clothes to the exam hall. Then if you believe in prayers, you can make your prayers during these periods. I'm a Christian and mostly I pray in the spirit because I feel better and more relaxed during this period. So basically everything you can do that can calm your body, just do it. What if you get pressed during this period? It's important that you try your best to ease yourself before entering the exam hall. Also reduce your fluid intake on the day of your exam. It is a bad and a terrible idea for you to be drinking water immediately you're about to enter the exam hall, because I once did this when I was about to write my Jamb exam and it was terrible. In fact, I will try to share the story here because it's very embarrassing, but I hope that my crush doesn't hear this story. Don't worry, she's not a jam bag. Okay, enough of that. Let me tell the story. I feel very uncomfortable telling the story. One of the main reasons is that this is my first time of telling the story to anyone, and you guys are the first ones to hear this story from me. On my exam day, before I entered the exam hall, I took lots of water. Even while I was about to enter the exam, I had a can of water, a bottle of water that I got, and I just finished it. And before I entered the hall, I made sure I went to ease myself. After I came back, entered the hall, everything was fine. And they said, if you want to ease yourself, you can stand up and go and ease yourself. And I was like, no, I checked, my bladder was empty then. But then, immediately they said that we should start the exam. That was when I got pressed, like my bladder got full or more. I didn't know what to do. And they said that if you stand up for any reason, they're going to take you out of the exam hall. And that's the end of the exam for you. So I was very afraid. I didn't know what to do because my bladder was full and I was just starting to write my exams. And to make it worse, a guy stood up to ask the invigilators a question and they just told the guy to leave the exam hall. So that made me very much afraid. Then I was smaller then, but now I've grown. Don't worry about the story. So I endured until I finished my biology and my chemistry. While I was starting to write physics, it was much on me. I couldn't endure it again. My bladder was full. And as God would have it, I was sitting on a chair that was made with foam. Guys, guess what happened? No, I don't want to finish the story. Just forget about it. But it happened that it happened and it happened and I was free that I didn't even stand up. But as God would have it, nobody knew what happened. I pity the person that was sitting on that seat after my exam. So guys, I was free and I wrote the physics exam confidently and also moved to my English. That was how I was able to write that exam successfully. Imagine that I stood up and when they released the result, I scored 324. Look at the result. That was the highest I got in Jamb. Now that you've heard my funny story, now let's get back to business. Before we start again, why not click on the subscribe button, like the video, and also turn on the notification icon so that you are notified whenever I release videos like this. Now in the exam hall, they'll give you a worksheet, or you can call it a rough sheet, where you can do your normal calculations and do your rough works. Whether you are writing a calculation question or not, I advise that you collect that rough sheet, because I will teach you what you'll be doing with that rough sheet. In previous years, before 2022, they always give A4 papers like this, but now they are giving some customized papers that you can use for the exam, and that customized worksheet have about 4 pages. I don't know whether they will give it to you guys this year, but if they don't give it to you and they are giving this type of A4, make sure you collect about 4 A4 papers. If they are saying, tell them they are doing calculation questions, just make sure that you collect A4 papers, whether you are doing calculation or not. That is if they are sharing A4 paper. But if they are sharing that customized worksheet, just collect one is enough for you. Once you have collected your own worksheet, let's assume that you are given that worksheet that has 4 pages or 4 leaves. What you just have to do is to divide those things into your subjects. Maybe in first page, write English, underline it, then open to the next page. That is, maybe if you are doing biology, write biology, underline it. If you are doing chemistry, do the same to another page, open a different page, do the same for your physics. That is if you are writing these 4 subjects. If you are writing other subjects, do the same for them, because that is where you will do individual works, and there are still stuff you will still do with these sessions, which I will also be discussing here. Then another important note, there are some people that are very fast. They just want to complete the exam and their adrenaline is just popping. They just want to finish the exam and they are going to start before the invigilators tell them to start. Please don't be this kind of people. Start when they say you should start, and don't start when they have not told you to start. This could be risky. And why I said you should start when they say you should start is because something happened to me in the exam, my past exam, like last year, the one I used for getting admission. It happened to me that when I entered the exam hall, I didn't start when they say we should start. I took like 5 minutes before starting, but I later paid for this mistake. And how I paid for it was that it was like 5 minutes to my exam submission time. I have not even finished revising all my works and my system just shut down, and they submitted automatically. And I asked the invigilators that I still have like 5 minutes remaining for me to finish the exam, that I have not finished revising what I did, and they said that it's because I did not start when they said I should start, that I took 5 minutes before starting. That is why the system just logged everyone off, so that the next set can come in and answer or write the exam. So guys, take note of this. When they say you should start, start, and don't start until they have said you should start. Then once you start, instead of going for the most complex subject first, I would advise that you stick to the subject, your most preferred subject, because the importance of doing this is that you will feel more calm while answering those questions easily, and you feel more confident so that you can easily tackle those difficult questions or those difficult subjects that you dread. So start with the ones you love most. For me, then, what I started with was biology. I love biology, that even if I don't read it, I know that I will pass biology. Then after biology, I moved to chemistry, which is one of my most preferred subjects. Then after chemistry, I've built some confidence enough. Then I will go to physics, which most students dread. Physics is my number 3rd subject that I always write, because I feel that if I've gained those confidence from biology and chemistry, I'm moving into physics. So I'll start with physics. Then when I'm done with physics, I move to English. And why I like doing English last is because English is quite simple and I can answer those questions under pressure. You know, most times when you're answering the last subject, you check the time and the time is no more your friend. The time is now ticking very fast. So instead of using those pressure to answer biology or chemistry or physics that I know that are going to give me the most marks, I'll use that time to answer English, because I don't really trust English like that. But I know that my marks are coming from biology, chemistry and physics because I love them so much, and because they are going to boost my score more than English. So, but if you love English more than other subjects, I advise that you start with English. But for me, English is always my last subject because I can answer English under pressure. It doesn't really require much thinking. Another important tip I'll be giving to you guys is don't be in a haste to submit, because for me, I don't see any reason why students are just in a haste to submit their questions. I've written this exam many times, and most of these times whenever I enter the hall and just 30 minutes to the exam hall, someone will just stand up that they have finished their questions. 1 hour, someone will stand up. 20 minutes, someone will stand up. Like, how did you finish your questions in 30 minutes? 2-hour questions, you finish them in 30 minutes. Guy, who are you trying to impress? Like, who are you really trying to impress? Except you have your wife in the labor room and you want to go and visit her there, because I don't see any logical reason why you should be finishing your exam in 30 minutes. And also, if you check these people that finish their exams in 30 minutes, they are one of the worst performing students. So why not calm down, relax, and answer your questions? As for me, I will judiciously use my 2 hours very well. There's no use for rushing. In fact, most times I will allow the system to even submit the questions for me and log me out, because it's my time. I'm not trying to impress any girl in the exam. So guy, just write your exam and use your time very well. Use it to the optimum. Again, don't be too slow while answering your questions. Although I've said that you should not be in a haste, but do not be too slow while answering your question, because logically you are meant to answer each question in 40 seconds. Although I know that some questions can even take lower than this. Some can take 10 seconds, while others can take about maybe 1 minute or even 2 minutes. But don't spend all your time on a question. This will lead me to sharing a trick that I always use while answering my question, so that I don't waste time on any question. When you are solving a question and you solve it the first time, you solve it the second time, you don't get the answer, just leave that question alone and jot down the answer in a special section that you have dedicated for each subject. Remember, I told you guys to dedicate each page to each subject. So make a special section in that page of the subject where you write down the numbers of the questions that you skipped and also the ones that you are not sure of. The importance of doing this is that most times while writing exams or while being in a haste, you encounter something I call a block, that you can't really remember how to solve a question even though that the question is simple. So it's a kind of block in your head. So just leave that question, go to the next question, because from research, after some minutes or after some hours, if you go back to that question, it will get simple and very simple for you to solve. So don't waste time there, because you will not remember how to solve it. Move to the next question, continue solving your question. When you are done with that subject, move to the next subject and do the same for the next subject until you are done with all your questions. Then after you are done with all your questions, it is now the best time for you to go back to that question that you skipped. I don't know whether this stuff have happened to you, that you try solving a question in a particular time of the day while you are doing your normal study and you can't really solve the question. Then after some hours, you get back to that question and you see the question in a new light, and you quickly solve the question and you see how simple the question was. This is what you can apply in the exam hall. So when you are wasting time on the question, just skip that question, go to the next question, and also jot down the question number of that question that you skipped, or even the question that you picked that you are not sure of. Then when you are done with all the subjects, then get back to the first subject and answer those questions you skipped there. By now, your brain should have been open to that concept, and if you try solving it then and you can't remember or get the answer again, just choose any answer and go to the next question that you skipped. Do the same until you finish it for all the subjects. Then there are some questions you also picked that you are not sure of, that you have already jotted down in that your answer sheet. Then go and revisit that question. Use your time very well. It is 2 hours of your time. Don't be in a haste to submit. Then when you are done with this, it's now time for you to start your proper full-time revision of all the subjects you've been writing. I know this is a complex method, but start again, start revising what the answer you picked from the question 1 of the first subject to the question 40. Then move to the next subject, do the same for the next subject, then move to the next subject. Do this for all your subjects. And the importance of doing this final revision is that sometimes we pick answers and we think that we pick the right answer, although we solve the answer right, but because we are very fast in answering the questions, we mistakenly pick the wrong answer instead of picking the ones we just solved in our book. So just make sure that you revise everything, because it's one thing to be accurate in the answers and it is one thing to be precise in choosing answer A or answer B. And do not be surprised to find out that you made some silly mistakes in this your subject. It's also very important that you keep an eye on your timer, but don't get distracted by the timer. But if you can spend like 27 minutes per subject, it will be excellent. But don't restrict yourself to this time because our abilities vary. If you can apply all this method, you'll be 100% sure that you left no stone unturned. So far, you've seen that no serious student will be standing up 30 minutes into the exam to submit, because if you can do all this, trust me, you've done your best. Again, if you run into any issues in the exam hall, just raise your hands and an invigilator will attend to you. Don't hesitate or try to fix the issue yourself, because that's a very big risk. If they catch you trying to fix things maybe that is wrong with the system, they could send you out of the exam hall, because it's like breaching the exam rules and regulations. So once you fall into any problem with your system, just raise your hands up or just scream at the invigilators. They will come and attend to you. In summary, make sure you don't take lots of water, some hours to your exam, and also make sure you ease yourself before you enter the exam hall. Again, make yourself comfortable while you are in the exam by taking a deep breath or even by pulling off your shoes. Again, make sure you collect your worksheet or your rough paper or your A4 paper that the examiners will be giving, and also dedicate each page to each subject. Again, don't start until they tell you to start. Another one is try your best to start when they said you should start. I hope you heard about my experience. Another point I made in the video is that you start with your best subject. Most importantly, don't waste time on any question. Any question that is stubborn, that you solve the first time, solve the second time, you didn't get the answer, just skip to the next questions. Again, list down those questions that you skipped, or those questions that you picked the answer but you're not sure of. List them down and make sure that you revisit them later once you are done with all the subjects, because by this time you have given your brain enough time to think out the answer or the solution to that question. If you then try it again, it didn't work out or you didn't get the answer, pick any answer instead of just leaving it blank, because you might be right, who knows. Then finally, revise your general work from beginning to the end, from the first subject to the last subject. Recheck each question to make sure that you pick the right answer. Thank you for giving me your time and staying to the end of the video. I love you guys. Lots of love to everyone that is writing this exam. I wish you success in this exam, and I wish that you guys can come and tell me how the video helped you to score high in the exam. And I believe that everyone watching this video will ace their exam. Thanks, and I love you once more. And I also made a video for you guys why majority of students fail or score lower than the expectations in Jamb. You can watch the video here.